Well, hello, everybody. Good morning. This is Jeremiah. We are going to have another great webinar on RefNotes. I particularly really like RefNotes. It's been really exciting and fun for me doing software development. You know, the very first version of RefNotes was the about let's just call it about the mid 90s, I believe, and it was just simply to put in notes numbered 1 to 99 with a big blob of text. That was it. That was where it started. And with planting, it's simple, like, right? It's you're picking a plant and you place that plant. With irrigation, you're picking a piece of equipment. You place that piece of equipment. And over the years, ref notes just continue to domesticize because, well, what are you calling out? And we go, well, you might be calling out a demolition note. Oh, well, gosh, well, how do I organize demolition notes and make them separate? Or, oh, you might be calling out something that's as a straight quantity, but you might call out something that has a length or an area, or you might want to call out gravel, which is a volume. And it just kept getting all this stuff tacked onto it. And then it became more and more challenging to still make the interface intuitive and simple, because it felt like it was getting complex and we're constantly juggling between capability and complexity. And so it's just been such a fun challenge over the years. And so I hope you're really going to enjoy this. We have a nice little quick dive into using it because it is extremely capable and handles basically all the stuff other than plants or irrigation. And so it's a really neat part of land effects. As for this webinar, we are recording it. It will be available on the website for you to recap, which is great, and share with others. As well, you are watching this live with us in person. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I would recommend you click it now and get that little window situated, because not only is that going to be easier for you to type questions to us, but you're also going to be able to see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes a fun little companion as you're watching this webinar with us. So that being said, it is time for me to hand this over to Paul to take it away.
Great, thanks, Jer. Good morning, everybody. As I was preparing for this presentation, I wanted to see examples of what our users were using reference notes for. Specifically, I was looking for notation examples. And so I started looking through client projects that they sent over. Just about every year, we do a photo contest where our users will send us photos of sites that they designed using land effects. And we encourage them to also send over, if they can, either drawing files or like PDFs of the actual plans, because it's really cool to see the line work of a drawing set and then also the photo of the finished installation of the landscape. And so I was going through some hardscape designs that were sent to us years ago. And I was kind of surprised to see that a lot of those users weren't really using the RefNote system. When they're working with hardscape inside amenities, a lot of it was designed with basic AutoCAD tools. And it just reminded me that, oh yeah, a lot of our users aren't really taking full potential or full advantage of all the tools that we have at their disposal. So it kind of gave some validity to this presentation, but then also reminded me that of who this presentation is for, really. So if you are curious about RefNotes, maybe you've never used them or you've dabbled, but you really haven't, taken the plunge into really working with RefNotes, then this presentation is for you, because we're going to go over the basics of RefNotes. And if you want to put a face to a voice, this is me. My name is Paul, and I'll be talking for the next 45 minutes or so. And this is what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to give a little overview of the RefNotes system in a slideshow format. And hopefully you'll be able to get what RefNotes are and maybe why you should be using them. Then we'll jump into AutoCAD and I will demonstrate using the RefNote manager, adding RefNotes to a project, editing the RefNote data, placing those reference notes onto a plan, and then how you can call them out and run schedules. And I'll show some colorization as well. So reference notes, or RefNotes for short, are used to specify objects in your site plan. And these can include fill materials, site amenities, hardscapes, pretty much any non-plant or irrigation or lighting objects that's going to go into your plan can probably be handled with reference notes. The ref notes are organized in the reference note manager. And if you are familiar with our irrigation or planting managers, you're in luck because the design of the dialog box is very similar. You can access this in the FX Site tab. All of our site tools are located in the FX Site tab of the ribbon. And these tools are all available with a planting effects license. So if you have planting effects or irrigation effects, then you have access to the FX Site tab. Within the RefNote manager, there are 5 categories for RefNotes, and each of these has their own way of representing the RefNote type within a plan. So the first category for RefNotes are the notations, and these are represented on a plan as simple notation callouts. So you can see at the bottom of this image here, a few different callouts for reference notes. So basically, you're not going to be placing a block or a hatch or a line that represents the object. Instead, it's just something to be called out. And I asked Amanda here at the office, what are some good examples of notations that she's used before? And she said she's done it for things that are either temporary or lump sum objects that don't need to be placed as a block. And she recommended like construction entrance. Maybe she wanted to call out the area in which the construction crew and machinery might come into the site. So that could be a good example of using notation. You can also use notations for general notes as well. And you don't have to place a call out for these. You could just add them here and then run a schedule based on those. The next category in the RefNote manager is the amenity category. And these are represented on the plan as blocks. Some good examples to be used for amenities are things like site furnishings. Here I have a bench and a table, site structures like arbors and pergolas. And then I also have a boulder there, which could be a good use for the amenity category. The next category is the length category. And this is used for displaying linear items like walls, fences, and curbs. And then we have the area and volume categories. These are both represented on a plan as hatches or hatch areas. And they're good for objects like paving and surfacing, and fill materials like mulch or decomposed granite. If you are adding a ref note for amenity or area volume, you will also have access to supporting manufacturers. So here we have some of the manufacturers for site amenities. You can click on a manufacturer's name and then browse their catalog from within CAD itself. And then it allows you to choose a product that is real, and all the specifications for that product are automatically added to your RefNote manager. And then you can also, which is kind of a new thing, is choose the color, if there are color options or material options for that product, and have those specifications automatically added to your RefNote manager. When you add a RefNote item or edit a RefNote item, this is the information that is behind it, which makes the item smart. This is the Edit RefNote dialog box. And It has just a few items that you can fill out yourself or customize, or might be added automatically if you're using a manufacturer product. But we have an area for notes, an area for the number of the item. You can put that item into a specific division, whether you're using CSI standards or your own custom divisions. You can assign that here. You can give the items a cost per unit of measurement. So in this case, it's a length item. So the cost is going to be the dollar amount per foot, or by meter if you're working in metric. If you're placing an amenity, it's going to be cost per item that's placed in the drawing, or area, it's going to be cost per area, like square foot or so on. You can also assign a construction detail to the item. And in the case of lengths, you can assign a specific layer, which is super important to lengths, and I'll get into that later. And then also user fields, which allows you to apply separate or extra columns in the schedule for that item. So if you need additional information that doesn't necessarily fit in the notes section, you can add more columns for the item. And then there's an area to choose the symbol representation, and you can adjust the style of the callout, all within this box. Once you've placed some ref notes into the drawing, you can call them out. Basically, you click on the item and it gives you an M leader. You place it and it displays the number of the reference note. Pretty easy. And then you can also run automated schedules to quantify your reference notes and display the specs for that item on your sheet. And finally, you can use color render to colorize site amenities and area volume hatches. And I will show that in CAD. So let's get into the CAD side of things. All right, since this is a sort of introductory presentation, I always feel compelled to give a little bit about initial drawing setup. And so what I've done so far is I've attached an XREF here, which is just some contour lines and a building and some lines for a driveway and little planting areas and a patio. So that's all in the XREF. I brought that in, and then I preemptively created some boundaries for areas that I know I'm going to want to be filling with RefNote areas or volumes, just to make that process a little easier. And the way I did that is I basically just used the boundary tool and created boundaries, just so I know I have good, clean, closed polylines. And then I drew like a perimeter fence for the backyard. But because this is basically a new drawing, I need to make sure that I've checked off a couple of the initial tasks for opening a new drawing. First thing you should do is check the units. These are already set because I'm working with the XREF, but you just want to be aware of what units you're working in. And if you're unsure if feet or inches or meters or millimeters is the right units that you're working with, you want to take a measurement of a known distance on the plan and make sure that it matches or that it displays the correct distance. So I've already done that. We're working in decimal feet. Next thing I want to do is set my plot scale. And for this project, I'm only working with 1 inch equals 10 feet. And that's important for when you're placing hatches or annotation objects so that they scale correctly once they're placed. And the next thing I want to do is create a project for this. So all that reference note information is going to exist within a project, which is specific to this drawing set for this project. To do that, you want to be in your FX admin tab and click on the project list and create a new project. or open a project if one exists for this already. And I can't think of a clever name for this, so I'm just going to call it new project for this example. Making sure to have my offices or my preferred preference set active. Click OK. Click open, make sure the preference set is right, and this is all fine for what we're doing. So I basically set up the drawing so I can now start adding reference notes into it. So to open up the RefNote manager, which is how we're going to be adding these ref notes, I want to go to the FX site tab here in the ribbon. And then on the very far left, there's a drop-down menu here. And there's a few different options, but we're going to be clicking on ref notes. And that's going to open up the reference note manager. Now, because this is a brand new project and I didn't base it off of any templates, it is completely blank. And as I showed already, we have our reference note categories up top. If you want to further organize your reference notes, you can organize them by division. So if you want to just display reference notes that are within exterior improvements, if you're using CSI, or if you're using one of these more basic divisions, like I just want to show all my paving ref notes, I can click on that and it'll only display those ref note types. So we need to add some ref notes in here. So how do we do that? You just go down to this new button, and it's going to open up that edit ref note or new reference note dialog box. And by default, if you're on the all category, it's going to put you in the notation category for reference notes type. And so let's create a simple notation. We'll use my example from earlier. We call it construction entrance. So I just want to show on the plan where that that machinery and the crew can access the site from. So you want to add in a note, which will also be kind of the title of the object. And you can add any additional notes you see fit here, but that's all going to show in the same area of the schedule once you run a schedule. And then you can add a number to it as well. Since this isn't something that's going to fall into a division that I have, I'm just going to leave it as 1. And none of these other objects really apply to this other than callout, because notations are represented as callouts in the plan. So if I wanted to change the callout style, I can click on this window here and adjust the different settings for the callout. So at the top, I have the different arrow options. I'm gonna leave it as the arrowhead there, but you can change the shape of the callout, and you can choose whether or not to have a background mask or screen fill, and whether or not to have a drop shadow. So maybe that's how I want my callout to display. I'll click OK, and then click OK again. And it has been added to my notation category for ref notes. Now, notations, you do have to place, or if you're going to place them in your plan, you have to click place. I know I've heard of some folks clicking call out because you are placing a call out, so it kind of makes sense that you would click call out, but that's not the button that you want to use for placing notation ref notes. You want to use the place button. So just select the item and click place. And maybe this is a, I don't know, fire access road that leads to the backyard or something. So I'm going to put my construction entrance here, and it's just an M leader. So I can place that as you would any other M leader in CAD. And this leader is tied to this object. The next type of reference note that we want to add to this is the amenity. So once again, you can select the category and click new, or if you happen to be in another category, you can click new there and then change the category type in the new reference note box. Just click this bubble. And what's different about adding an amenity or a area and a volume is when you click new, it's not going to take you to the reference note information box right away, because we do have that manufacturer connection. So instead of taking you directly to that, it's going to bring you to this window where you can either choose generic or custom, which will take you to a blank reference note information box, or you can browse a catalog from a manufacturer and choose a specific product. So let's say I want to add a table from landscape forms. I can click on the name and then browse through their catalog. I'm looking for a table, and I want to use this Gretchen table. So I click on the product, and it brings up this fancy new window here where I can specify the color and material for the table. So this tab here is for the frame, and if I float my mouse over the options, it shows a little preview of each of these items. So let's say I want to use a kind of a nice soft blue frame with a driftwood polysite tabletop. So I can select those, and when I'm done selecting my product, I can click Add to Project, and it's going to bring you to this reference note information box, but it's going to fill out the specifications already for you. So we have the model, information about the model, and then also the finish that I've specified, which is really neat. It's going to fill in a number automatically. It's going to basically increment the numbers as I add them in, since I haven't chosen a division for this. This is my second one, so it came in as 2. But since there is a division for this, I'm going to actually assign a division. So I could either use the S, which is a default setting for site furnishings, or if I'm using the CSI master format division set, I'll probably want to go to 32 for exterior improvements, and then down to site furnishings. So that's gives me the number 32, 33, and then whatever number you want to put there. Additionally, I can add a cost to this. So however many tables I place in this drawing, each one will be priced up for me automatically. Do not know how much a table costs, so I'm just going to put $500. That might be low. And then user fields, you can add in your own user fields. Basically, these translate to separate columns in the schedule. So if I wanted to add additional information as a separate column, I can do that. Not going to do it for this specific ref note. If you click on the symbol preview here, you can choose a different block for this, but because it's a manufactured product, we basically made blocks specifically for this product. And so the block that's already assigned to it is drawn at the right size and colored already. So there's really no need to change the symbol for it if you're using a product specific item. So I'm just going to leave everything as it is and click OK. And you should see it populate in your amenity RefNote area. And once again, to place this, you just want to select the item and click the place button. And you see my little table here. Just going to place it in this area here. So when you're placing amenities, you'll want to click once to place it, and then you'll get this ability to set the rotation of the block. So you can pick a specific rotation for it, or you can just press enter or spacebar and it'll give you the default rotation of the block. So I placed a table in that little area there. Let's now add a length item. So I'm going to go to my length category and click new. And it's going to bring up this blank reference note information box here. And basically I want to add a reference note for that fence in the backyard that I've already kind of drawn in. So I'm just going to keep it simple and type wood fence. I'll select a division for fence, which has a couple of subdivisions ready. So wood is appropriate for that. I can give it a cost, and that's measured by dollars per foot. So whatever that cost would be, hopefully you know, I don't. And this is what's really important about these length items, is you want to assign a layer for it. And the reason is that any lines on the layer that's tied to this length ref note are going to be counted towards the quantity. So I can create a new layer and then draw my wood fence on that layer, or move my existing line work onto that new layer for it to be counted. Or I can just choose the layer that this fence already lies on, since I know that's the only thing that should be on that layer. So lfence 101. And this division that I chose has user fields already set up for it. So maybe I want to specify that it's an 8-foot tall fence. And even though the code tells me that it's wood, maybe you want to specify it's redwood or whatever material you want to use for it. Or if there's a color or a finish, you can add that information in there. Because it's counting all the line work on a specific layer, nothing happens when you click on the symbol. And you can, again, customize the call out for it. But that's good enough for this wood fence that I'm calling out. I'm gonna click OK. And now, even though this is just a polyline, it is being counted as this wooden fence because of that layer association. And again, this is just a polyline, and I've added a dashed line to it, but it could be any line type. And you can also apply one of our railing types, or fancy line type, as I sometimes refer to them as. In the FX site tab, there's a lines button here. If you drop it down and click on railing, it'll ask you to select a polyline or rail, fence, or wall. So I'm going to click on this line, and I have different options for how I want to display that line. So since this is a fence, it seems appropriate that I'd use the wood screen fence line type here. I can specify the distance between the posts. I think 8 feet is fine. Click OK. And it's going to transform that polyline into something that's a little more aesthetically pleasing. But also, if you look at the properties of this, it's a block. But that won't affect the linear distance of the object. So the wooden fence is still going to count the length of this when you run the schedule. And one thing I feel like I should note is if you do this, but then you need to make changes later to that line, since it's a block, it's going to be kind of difficult to do so, but you can turn it back into a polyline by once again clicking on that railing tool and then selecting the line there. And so now it's back as a polyline, and I can make my adjustments. And once I've done that, I can just turn it right back into a fancy line type there, and you're good to go. So that's how you add in length items for reference notes. Next, we want to add, let's do a paving pattern for this patio area. So I'm going to go to my area RefNote category, click on new. And once again, because there are manufactured products that pertain to this, we'll get this pop up. And let's say I want to use a Unilock product. I can click on Unilock and go through their catalog here. and choose a product that I want to use. Let's say I want to use this Bristol Valley. There's the information for it. If you click on more info, it'll take you to the actual website of the manufacturer there. So I'm going to add that. A bunch of time saved by having all this specification information already added in. I want to choose my division. So unit paving. You can assign it a cost. It's just an arbitrary number. You can set a construction detail to it. You don't want to add a depth to an area. If you add a depth to it, it adds that third dimension and it'll be counted as a volume. Since these are unit pavers, I want to keep them as measured by area so I can figure out how many to order. And once we're done with our information, click OK. And just like the other RefNotes, select the item, click place, and it'll allow you to place it into your drawing. Now the hatches work a little differently than the blocks or the lengths or the notations because you're placing a hatch. So the easiest way to do this is to look down the command line and see that it says to select a polyline to hatch. And since I have a closed polyline already, I can just click on the border here and it's going to fill that in. Now, there are a couple different ways to add hatches to your drawing. One other way is to click place, and then notice there's a option for draw. So if you click or press the D key for draw, you can actually draw the hatch boundary on the fly. So let's say I wanted to draw a little paving area right here. I can actually just start drawing the polyline boundary, let's say like that. And when I'm ready to close that boundary, press enter, and it's going to add that hatch pattern in for you. And if you have a case where, say you have an area that you want to fill with pavers or a hatch pattern, but it has items in the middle of it that you want to exclude from the quantity, say this entranceway patio thing has a fountain in the middle, and you don't want to have pavers underneath the fountain. You could have a boundary line for that so that when you go to place it, you can use the multiple option by pressing M. And then you'll want to select the outer boundary there. And now it says select the inner boundary. So that's any closed polylines or shapes within the area. And press enter. And it's going to place that hatch pattern and exclude those areas that you selected in the middle. So that's how you place areas. And volumes is very similar. Let's set up a mulch because I'm going to be ordering my mulch by cubic yard. So when you select a generic or custom RefNote type instead of a manufacturer product, it's going to take you to choose a hatch pattern right off the bat. So let's find one that I like for mulch. And I'll just call it mulch. Set my division. And these divisions, I feel like I should mention, these are customizable. If you want to take a more advanced step in using RefNotes, you can customize these in your RefNote preferences to however you see fit. So I'm going to put this in the planting accessories division, give it a cost, and depth. So depth is the most important because that's how you're going to get that volume calculation. So my mulch is going to be 4 inches in depth. And I'm going to click OK. And just like placing areas, I click place and I select my boundary lines. here. So these are going to be my mulched areas for these planting beds. And there you have it. Pretty easy and pretty quick to add these items into your RefNote manager and to place them. Now, let's say you've already done a project or more than one project with reference notes, but you want to use reference notes that you used in those previous projects for this project. You can totally do that. One way you can do that is to set up a template and base the project when you create the project off of that template with RefNotes. Or you can do what I'm going to show here, which is go down to the import button in the RefNote manager. And if you click on that, it'll bring up your project list. So you can choose that project that you used before that you want to pull RefNotes from. Click OK. And it's going to give you a list of all these different reference notes from that project. And let's see, you can select multiple entries at a time. I'm just going to hold down the control key and click on, let's see, landscape folder. I want to add in an arbor and concrete sidewalk. So once I've got my RefNote selected, click add to project and then done. And they should all be imported into this project. So something else I wanted to add was this custom arbor, which I know fits right here in this little space, like that. And I'm going to place this concrete RefNote on these sidewalks. And we're good to go. Let's see, I'm going to delete this. All right, so we've placed our reference notes. And now we want to place some callouts showing, a little indication of where these are, what these are. So the two ways to call out RefNotes is either clicking this button here in the RefNote manager for callout, or you can go up to Site Callouts and click the RefNote callout option. And what that's going to do is give you a pick box where you can select either a length item, like a line, there, and it gives you the number, or you can select a hatch or an area or volume RefNote. And once again, it's giving me the multi-liter here. So it's just click, it'll set that arrow down. You click again for the liter line and you click once more to place the actual call out. So I can go through and just call out all of my different RefNotes here. Like that. So now that I've called out my RefNotes, I'm going to want to place a schedule. So you can either go to the RefNote schedule button here, which is under the RefNotes button in the ribbon, or you can click the schedule button in the RefNote manager. And it's going to bring up these different schedule options. So the drawing style at top here is a more of an open looking schedule. The table style is going to be more of like a spreadsheet where it has individual cells per, I guess, entry in the schedule there. Or I can click spreadsheet, which will actually export a CSV file, which can be opened in Excel or Google Sheets or any spreadsheet editor. So if you want to export your itemized material list or whatever you want, you can do that and then do that for takeoffs. I'm just going to do the drawing style. The entire palette option will give you a schedule with everything that's in your RefNote manager, whether or not it's placed in the drawing or not. and because of that, it's not going to quantify what's in the drawing. But I'm going to not do that. If you have reference notes in a base file or another XREF that you bring in, you can check this option and it'll actually look through the XREF to quantify what's in those. There's nothing in my RefNote or my XREF, so I don't need to check that. You can customize the column widths for the different columns in the schedule. And if you want, you can choose a specific division. So if I just want reference notes counted that are within the exterior improvements division, I can choose that and click OK, and it'll just count those ref notes and exclude the others. And then there's some more options on what to display. So user fields, you can display all of them or just the ones that you've used or none of them. The callouts can be displayed as text or block. And then whether or not you want to show the code or the block symbol or both in the schedule. I don't necessarily recommend using the symbol option for amenities, as they can vary widely in size. You could have a pergola and you can have boulders, which are very different in size. And the way they display in the schedule is they're basically scaled to the size that they're actually placed at. And so it can look kind of funky. But if it works for you, go ahead and do that. I'm just going to leave it as code. I didn't actually tie any details to anything, so I won't show that, but I will show cost. So click OK, and then you just need to click where the upper left-hand corner of the schedule should be. And it's going to automatically run all that information. So you see the quantity of the items that I placed, the description, the code, and then also the cost. So if I had a cost for everything, everything would be totaled up here, which is great for your takeoffs. And finally, before we jump into questions, I do want to leave quite a bit of room for questions. I just wanted to show that you can also use our color render tools to turn on some color for this, just for a very quick presentation purposes. And there's basically two different steps that we need to take just because of how the system is set up. The first one is if we want to colorize the hatch areas, so that'll be either the areas or volumes ref notes, we're going to want to use the color render tool, which is located here, second option down. And if you're familiar with our color render tool with planting, it's basically the same for ground covers and shrub areas, where it gives you a little preview of what color is assigned to that object. And if it's blank, then it has no color assigned to it. And you can click on that item and give it a color that you want. So I'm just going to assign some colors to these objects. And if you see a blank rectangle here, and then there's other entries beyond it, basically the objects to the left of the blank square are in the drawing, and the ones to the right have not been placed in the drawing yet. So once you have colors assigned to your ref notes, click the on button. And what it's going to do is basically leave the hatch pattern that was already there, but then place a color, either solid color or gradient hatch underneath that hatch pattern. So very quick way to turn on color for those areas. And then for the site amenities, like this table, basically all of our plan graphics and elevation graphics have a color layer already built into it. So you could go into the layers manager and turn on that layer. But because there's lots of different types of blocks and different layer standards, depending on what kind of block it is, you might be going through several different layers trying to find that color layer to turn it on. But the easy way to turn it on is to just open up our site color tool. And to do that, you can either type site color and press enter, or you can click the button here in the ribbon for site color. And it's going to open up our color wheels set color tool, but it's also going to automatically just turn on all those color layers for those blocks. And so if I want to turn it off, I can click this light bulb, the blue one, and then the yellow one to turn it back on. So it's a pretty a quick way to colorize your hardscape plan there. And that's about all I really wanted to show. I kind of wanted to keep it simple, but if there are questions, I can definitely dive into any of these topics, or maybe branch out if people want to know a little more.
We have had so many great questions, and I've been so happy because all these questions are basically just showing off how powerful this capability is. But yeah, everything from, how do you customize those CSI numbers there? To, I mean, on down the list. I guess why don't we start there? Maybe if we kind of show, because another one was, how do we even get into the divisions? So I think people are definitely seeing that how it's a very capable tool, but just simply notes 1 to 999 breaks down pretty quick. And so let's just kind of show where we set up those divisions and subdivisions.
Yeah, so initially I was planning on going into this a little bit, but I think I figured because of timing and whatnot, I wanted to not go into this, and it's maybe better used for a slightly more advanced webinar. But basically, you can control all of this in your RefNote preferences. So all of our tabs at the top have a button on the right for preferences. So click on RefNotes here with the gear icon. If you're in another tab, you can still go over to RefNotes by clicking on it once it populates eventually. There we go. So here we have our RefNote divisions. You can add new divisions, or you can select existing ones and add basically new subgroups. So if we want to go to new, we have the sort of the actual division. So here, and then we could basically give it a number. Hopefully I'm not overriding one here. And whatever you want to call it, so it's my division. You can give it the schedule title, which will basically be the title that's over the column for that, or not over the column. When you run a schedule, it's divided up by divisions, so you can have a specific title for that. And then if you want to have a subdivision, gotta create it first. Okay, so I've created a division in here, and I can go into edit it and go into subdivision, new. There we go. All right, so for subdivision, click new, click on the subdivision button. You do want to set up the overall division first, just so it's basically stamped into your preferences, and then click on new again, and then you can go into a subdivision and give it a, say you want to start at 101 and give it a name. So it's going to call sub. So here's my new division and subdivision. For this, you can add in user fields. So if you select it and click new, whatever you want that to be, maybe it's material, and then choose one of these options for how you interact with it within the edit RefNote dialog box. So if it is going to be multi-line, you do have to run a schedule in table format, as the drawing format doesn't support the multi-line capabilities. You can specify a width for that. So let's say I want 1.5 inches for the width of that column. Let me spell this correctly. And I'm just going to use text, click OK. And so how that translates to your RefNote items is if I edit a RefNote item, I should be able to choose my division. I'll have options for subdivisions. There it is, the number translates, and that user field pops up right here. So I can just click underneath it. So I mean, it's already concrete, but I can specify my material, or as you saw with the fence, it already has user field set up for height, and you can add stuff in like plank spacing or materials, or the, if it's going to be painted, what color, what type of paint, etc. So that's how editing the divisions in your preferences translates over to the actual information of the RefNote item. I just got to give it a number.
I think it's, I just realized it shouldn't have let you made a 3-number subdivision. I didn't realize that. But anyway, yeah. So it
Yeah.
wants to enforce the 222 numbering.
Right.
But
my mistake. You should not have subdivisions with 3 digits. Okay. So that's that.
yeah, definitely showing off the you can see, I mean, just like I said, the difference between that's just what I always am amazed at is in looking at this is the first version was just numbers 1 to 99, right? And it's just so much has been engineered with it in working with firms over these years. It's just all these different firms wanting these, doing different things with it and just asking more and more out of it. And so it really can scale up to these wildly complex hardscape plans, or any type. Even had there's a lot of development in here. There was one firm who specializes in cemeteries, and there's a certain style, particularly it's just the quantity calculation. They of course need to count up the plots. And so there's changes made to support that. So it's just really amazing how many different little types of plans and things that RefNotes can accomplish. So I am always amazed with it. And then we had, let's see, that was another question was when you showed off that M option when placing a hatch. Someone was wondering if that's available for planting and irrigation hatches, and yes, it is. So that's just a standard hatch placement. You can use that M option when placing a hatch. So that's always good. And then another great question was for renumbering the ref notes. In the schedule is the renumber option. But it kind of highlighted, oh, that's right. We really kind of need to add that to the manager here because the detail manager already has a renumber button. So we've already added that to the wish list, and we'll see if we can get that added actually in the next few months. So that's why I love this interaction with everybody during webinars.
Yeah, totally. And I wanted to show real quick. It's an issue that sometimes comes up while we're working with some of our users that can cause some confusion when it comes to divisions. So if you're opting for basically a two character code like this, I have masonry, which is 04, unit masonry 20. And let's say I have more than 20 of these items. Well, that puts me up to 40, right? So if I do that and I click OK, what's going to happen is now suddenly it's falling into the stone assemblies subdivision. So just beware if you set up, your reference notes and you put in a number under a certain division, but then you go back to it and suddenly it's in a new subdivision. It's because you're basically jumping into a new division by making this number, whatever it might be, in this case, 40. So just watch out for that.
Very good. And then, we just got a great question here from Jeff about the selection of those blocks. If you want to go to the selecting a generic block for an amenity, and we have an ever-growing list. It's constantly being added to by our content team, but also you are more than welcome to add your own in here. But he pointed out that something that he would like is things like air conditioners and generators, which is a really great idea. Never heard of that one, and we should definitely add that probably under architectural along with those. But you are absolutely more than able to add in your own custom blocks in here. They're all just blocks. And there's a little save block button right underneath the plan graphics in the blocks drop down in the ribbon. So you can use that to create a air conditioner block of your own and move right along.
Yeah, that's actually how I created this little arbor for an example. It was already part of this base file. I just moved it over, and then you go down to, or up to this blocks drop down, and there's a save block tool. And it's going to want you to pick an insertion point and then select the object and press enter. And it's going to bring you to the blocks folder. So you can place it into, in this case, plan graphics, and then site structures. And I think I put it in trellis. Yeah. So you can add in your own blocks in there. You can create other folders to organize your blocks better if it doesn't fall into one of our categories there. Click save. It's going to take a slide for you, and you can choose the rotation, scale type, and click OK. So that now I can go into either my plan graphics library and choose that new block and place it, or I can actually choose it from the RefNote items here. So if I click on symbol, it's going to take me to that plan graphics library here. So, and then I can place it that way. Oh, don't click too fast.
Exactly. So I hope that was fun. I hope everybody enjoyed that and is super excited about this really neat tool that, and it is, right? You kind of buy the software because of the planting or the irrigation. And so people always move into ref notes and details kind of secondly, but it's always that same reaction of like, whoa, this software I already own does all this cool new stuff. So I hope you're really jazzed about it. And keep the ideas coming and let us know what other subjects you want to see in webinars. And otherwise, have a fantastic weekend, everybody. We will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.